You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Complex talaga ang issue of children and families in street situations. Very, very complex. Pero one very real solution na patunay sa iba't ibang parts ng mundo, and it just makes sense, is kailangan may affordable housing. Kung ayaw mo makita na may mga tao sa street, tulungan nyo sila na magkaroon ng affordable housing. Hindi naman necessarily na kailangan mag-handout kasi hindi din yun makakatulong na wala naman necessarily na may ownership. Maganda talaga na may ownership and may participation yung mga families. Pero kailangan talaga na pag-isipan na paano tayo mapa-transition yung mga families na nasa inadequate housing or no housing into housing, and housing that is accessible sa kanilang livelihoods.
In the Philippines, tens of thousands of children live in the margins of society. Some are seen on the streets selling sampaguita, collecting plastic bottles, or begging for loose change. But many more remain hidden. There are children who move from one relative's house to another, who sleep in bus terminals or under footbridges, who don't have birth certificates or even a fixed address. They don't show up on government lists. They don't qualify for benefits, and often they don't make it into classrooms. Because they're invisible, they're also at greater risk, exploited for labor, trafficked, or abused, and without the safety nets that most children rely on. In the Philippines, this is the reality for what advocates call children in street situations, and despite years of programs and policies, many of these children remain unseen, uncounted, and unprotected. In this episode, I'm joined by Catherine Sherry, Executive Director of Bahay Tuluyan Foundation. Catherine is originally from Australia, but she's called the Philippines home for over 20 years. She first came here as a wide-eyed high school student for an immersion program, then moved permanently after finishing college. Later, she earned her master's in human rights law from the University of Melbourne. Since then, she has dedicated her career to advocating for the rights of children, building programs, training communities, and pushing for policies that address the realities of children in street situations. Hi, Kath. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
So, let's go ahead na. You first came sa Philippines as a high school student for an outreach program. So, what made you decide to return and eventually focus your work on child rights here, particularly sa children in street situations and their families?
Yeah, I guess that experience for me when I was 15 years old was incredibly pivotal. I think the experience of encountering poverty directly firsthand really was very overwhelming. One of the places that we visited during our trip was Smoky Mountain, which at that time was home to thousands of families living in incredibly difficult conditions. And that really, really challenged me to think about bigger issues. But I think what really got me in was the visit we had to Bahay Tuluyan, because we did visit different organizations. We went to lots of different places. It was a pretty intense trip, but visiting Bahay Tuluyan really caught my imagination. I think what was really different about it for me was the way children and young people were taking the lead. They had experienced some incredible trauma, incredible difficulty in their lives, but they were positive, they were hopeful, they were really, really active, they were teaching other kids, they were working in the community, and that really challenged me as somebody who'd grown up with so many privileges to really think about what I was doing with what I had.
Oh, so it wasn't really just the poverty and the sadness and all that lack, but rather yung mga empowered na kids talaga yung naka-inspire sa'yo to I guess work with them and to see the hope. If you did come here, parang nakita mo yung hope that something can be done.
Absolutely. Yun talaga. Yung parang driving force siguro yung challenge of poverty, pero yung pag-asa na may magawa and may gumagawa na parang excited ako maging part ng pagbabago.
Yeah, definitely. Kasi oo nga naman, if you feel like it's a hopeless thing, bakit ka pa di ba magta-try at all? You wouldn't want to try something that's totally hopeless. So, through your work sa Bahay Tuluyan, you've seen children in street situations that And you've seen that they don't always fit the stereotype, diba? So, hindi laging nagbebeg, not every one of them are on the streets begging. So, what are some of the more complex living conditions you've encountered na make these children effectively invisible?
I think wala naman talagang typical child in street situations. Napakalawak yung spectrum ng mga bata. Kahit sa definitions na hirapan, kahit kami sa sector nito, hirapan talaga kami sa specific definition. According sa UN, yung children in street situations is children who have a vital connection to the street. So they can be living, working, playing, spending much of their time on the street or in public places, which is not always yung streets na makikita natin. So, yun, sa scope ng work ng Bahay Tuluyan, yung ibang children in street situations na kinikater namin ay may uwian. Actually, higher majority ng mga bata may uwian, pero sometimes hindi sapat ang uwian, sometimes hindi safe ang uwian, hindi sila makauwi talaga. But also yung nabanggit nyo na yung invisible children, I think is a really big concern. Na marami talagang in situations where in isang parang very positive trait ng Philippine culture, yung tendency to kup-kup o parang care for kapwa, which can be a really positive thing for some children. So may mga bata na kinukup-kup na mga kapitbahay, kamag-anak, kaibigan, kakilala. Pero sometimes yun na nga, dahil parang informal lang siya, maging invisible din sila. So meron mga bata sa ganun ng klaseng informal care that can be at great risk dahil informal siya. So in many times it can be good, pero it can also be dangerous or difficult.
Actually, you touched on my next question, which is dahil informal siya, usually they're at greater risk. Kasi nga, they're outside the system. Usually undocumented, or even if documented, we don't really see what's happening to them. Hindi katulad ng kids na nasa school all day long and then nasa more secure and consistent home environments, diba? So, as you said, these children face greater risks. From what you've seen, pero ano yung pinaka-vulnerable sila na forms of exploitation? Whether that's trafficking, sexual abuse, child labor, or physical abuse, what kinds of exploitation do you see most happening to these children?
Yeah, so unfortunately, lahat ng uring na abuse ay nandito sa Philippines. Mataas ang rates. 80% of Filipino children experience some form of abuse. So according to the National Baseline Study on Violence Against Children. So yung sa work namin, madalas yung extreme cases ay makarating sa amin is sexual abuse, which is unfortunately still very common. Physical abuse, kung abot sa extreme, yun, makarating sa amin. Pero yung day-to-day physical abuse na hindi pa lumayas ang bata o hindi pa na-report sa authorities, hindi namin necessarily makikita yun. Tapos, yun, yung nabanggit nyo kanina, yung sa trafficking, child labor, syempre, kung ikaw ay isang bata, tapos kinupkup ka lang ng isang pamilya, isang tao, tapos inutos ka na magganito ganyan, hindi ka basta-basta magreklamo, wala kang ibang puntahan, wala kang ibang makain. Kaya very vulnerable ka talaga sa mga abuse na gano'n na that you can be very easily exploited. Ang concerning and rising issue sa Philippines din is online sexual abuse and exploitation. Well, unfortunately, the Philippines is one of the hotspots globally. So, and often yung abuse na yun is perpetrated by yung close sa bata, sa either family or like family.
So that's hindi emerging, malaki na siyang problem talaga sa Pilipinas. I mean, worldwide, but I think Philippines yung isa sa pinakamataas din talaga yung na problem yan, Another thing lang na gusto kong tanungin, it's about yung kids that we see every day na mas common na tingin ng mga tao as street children. The ones we see begging on the streets, yung naglilinis ng windows, ng kotse, mga ganyan. Dala-dala ng mga nanay na babies. in your experience working with children in street situations, diba, it's something that common people struggle with. Do I give them money? Do I not? Siguro kasi abuse ng parents nila or ginagamit ng sindikato. What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's really, really challenging. Para sa akin, parang ayaw ko din makarating sa point na hindi ako moved pag may maghingi sa akin. And ayaw ko madagdag sa invisibility nila na hindi ko din papansinin. So para sa akin talaga, at a personal level, at a human level, gusto ko talaga bigyan pansin yung maghihingi ng tulong kasi lagi natin isipin kung tayo yon, kailangan talaga ng tulong tapos walang tutulong, mahirap. Imagine mo kung lalapit ka sa tao magsalita tapos hindi sila titingin sa'yo, parang maging invisible ka talaga. But from a professional perspective and somebody who's worked in this industry na matagal na panahon, paniniwala ko talaga is hindi yun ang best solution sa mga tao na sa street. Kasi kahit paminsan hindi tayo bibigyan ng pera, bibigay lang natin ng pagkain o lapis o kung ano bang feeling natin na kailangan nila. The reality is, kung meron talaga na nagbibigay sa street, para sa katulad sa amin ng NGO o government na working talaga to get kids off the street, ang hirap i-battle, ang hirap yung kasi yung pull factor is really there. So ma-recall ko yung case ng isang bata dati na magaling talaga na bata, na charismatic talaga siya, batang-bata, as in invisible child, na iwan ng family, lumaki talaga siya sa street. Tapos, kahit anong support na binibigay namin sa kanya, shelter, food, education, programs, lahat ng support, hindi kami kaya mag-compete sa kita niya araw-araw sa street. So, syempre, nasarapan siya, pupunta siya sa street, tapos uuwi siya ng gabi na 1,000 ang pera niya, ang hawak niya. Ang hirap talaga ma-break yung cycle. So, ang advice ko lang or suggestion ko lang is supportahan sila, acknowledge sila. Wag natin maging manhid o parang we need to be present, we need to be human, but we also need to direct our support in the right way. So supporting organizations that support kids to get off the street is a much more sustainable, impactful way na i-direct them. That may malaman natin yung saan yung mga local shelters or NGOs or government agencies na makatulong sa kanila, and we can engage in a conversation, advise them to access services.
Yeah, that's I get what you're saying, that from a human perspective, kasi may times na ayaw mo nang tumingin kasi it's so hard, sunod-sunod, but then andun din yung pull na parang teka, namamanhid na ako, right? From a human perspective, we shouldn't lose our humanity and try to keep on empathizing or at least sympathizing. Pero yun nga, we have to be parang long-term yung pagtingin natin sa solution and hindi lang yung emotional. Alam mo naman tayo mga Pilipino, napaka-emotional creatures, no? So, yan. Talagang considered ko siya Pilipino kasi so galing ka pa mag-Tagalog, so daming Pilipino. So, let's go back to ito naman, about documentation ng children. So, alam natin na yung isang major issue nan is documentation, di ba? So, merong mga walang birth certificates, IDs, madami ding walang access to school or government aid, of course. And then, we know that if there's no paperwork, then barriers like stigma, discrimination, and fear of authorities, lalong nagiging parang mas nag-work together yung barriers ng may discrimination and then their lack of documentation. So, for you, how do these systemic gaps combine? Or ano yung nangyayari that makes them even more invisible or the problem even harder to tackle?
Yeah, talagang nandyan talaga yung mga barriers. Actually, kagaling lang ako sa meeting sa aming social workers kasi ganon pa rin, constant ongoing problem sa kinakita namin ng mga bata na wala pa silang birth certificate o kailangan i-process pa yung certificate of foundling na sa matagal na panahon na hindi niya alam na saan siya galing. Sobrang labor intensive. Kahit sa professionals na trained sa ganon, mahirap gawin. So, lalo sa mga families na walang kakayahan. So kahit may bill tayo na sana papaganda yung papadali sana yung sistema, pero kailangan i-factor in na kahit yung pamasahe papuntang City Hall para kumuha ng negative result for birth certificate. Parang unang step pa lang, may barriers na. So, yun ang napakalaking challenge. Tapos ang isang malaking win sana na pwede talaga maging impactful para sa mga bata is tanggalin yung requirement na may birth certificate para sa schooling. So, on one hand, mahalaga na talagang may incentive para ma-register yung birth ng bata. Mahalaga yon kasi kailangan talaga yung key component ng identification niya. Pero yung strict requirement ng DepEd it becomes a barrier. Meron mga cases na sobrang tagal talaga mag-process kahit nagpasok ang bata araw-araw for 1 whole year. Pagdating sa kung hindi pa final yung birth certificate, hindi credited. So, uulitin niya yung buong taon. So, parang napakasayang. So, yan. Tapos lalo yung nabanggit natin na yung invisible children or not connected sa families o yung family walang kakayahan, napakahirap. Kami dito, nag-operate kami dito sa NCR, sa Laguna, Quezon. Pero yung mga mas far-flung provinces lalo na walang access sa mga social welfare agencies na makaka-assist sa kanila, ay talagang forever sila marginalized. While one positive step yung national ID, paminsan circular din yun kasi hindi ka maka-apply kung wala ka pang birth certificate. Hindi naman lagi. So mostly ang experience namin sa national ID has been medyo smooth na binibigyan, pero paminsan may challenges pa rin. Lalo kung hindi ma-validate na talagang tunay na pangalan ng bata o saan siya pinanganak, lalo kung separate sa family nila na bata pa, hindi pa alam na saan yung family nila.
So, from what you've said, it looks like birth certificate yung pinakamalaki, no? Yung effect. Kasi, aside from yung right na nga nila to have that birth certificate identity, part of their identity, is na-affect yung other rights nila, which is yung pinakamabilis na nakita nating na-affect, is yung education. Kasi nga they can't even enroll.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a big problem na sana ma-solve. And I think it is linked to this one again. Kasi di ba sa last SONA niya nung July, si President Marcos said, families without permanent housing should be included in the 4-piece program. Right? So, pag walang birth certificate, I don't know how may include yon. And while some welcomed this idea, makita mo online, medyo mainit yung usapan at that time, mga reaction ng mga tao. So, they would say it's unfair dun sa mga taxpayers. Others said na hindi naman ma-implement yan. Paano i-implement? And then others would say, of course, bubulsahin na naman yan nung mga nasa LGU and hindi yun makakarating sa tamang recipients. As someone who works sa child rights nga and children in street situations, and I know their families as well, because Bahay Tuluyan really wants to, di ba you're trying to put families together again, pag safe at least. So, how do you view this proposal, especially in relation to the children?
Yeah, well, yung initial implementation ng conditional cash transfer program noon pa, yun na ang unang sinabi namin. Paano ba yung mga families na walang household, walang registered household? Kaya may modified conditional cash transfer program noon. So na-adapt talaga para sa mga street-based families. And while it was a step in the right direction, hindi siya end solution. Pero may good elements naman din sa program na yon. And kung tanungin natin, complex talaga ang issue of children and families in street situations. Very, very complex. Pero one very real solution na patunay sa iba't ibang parts ng mundo, and it just makes sense, is kailangan may affordable housing. Kung ayaw mo makita na may mga tao sa street, tulungan nyo sila na magkaroon ng affordable housing. Hindi naman necessarily na kailangan mag-handout kasi hindi din yun makakatulong na wala naman necessarily na may ownership. Maganda talaga na may ownership and may participation yung mga families. Pero kailangan talaga na pag-isipan na paano tayo mapa-transition yung mga families na nasa inadequate housing or no housing into housing. And housing that is accessible sa kanilang livelihoods. Kasi madalas yung mga housing projects ay nasa malayong lugar. So yung like halimbawa yung mga impoverished communities dito sa Manila na matagal kami na nag-work sa communities na yan, matagal na sila at threat of demolition. Kahit ina-offer ng relocation ng government, hindi talaga sila nag-grab ng opportunity kasi napakalayo. Paano sila makabuhay? Paano sila makatuloy yung pag-aaral? Yung ibang instances na natuloy yung families na gano'n, nag-relocate, pero ang lumalabas is iniiwan yung mga bata doon sa bahay para hindi siya mawala kasi isang one shot lang yun. Tapos, ang parents bumabalik sa street o bumabalik sa city na wala naman silang tuluyan, para makabuhay. So may additional layer of risk din sa bata sa ganun na situation kasi wala na yung main caregiver. Sa 20 plus years sa work nito, in some ways it's the most obvious solution. Pero anytime na ma-raise mo sa meetings o gano'n, ano ba ang solution? Housing, parang tatawa mga tao, ay, hindi kasi long-term yun. Pero long-term problem ang pinag-usapan natin. So kung gusto talaga natin makita na less people living sa street, kailangan natin isipin na saan sila titira. Ganon. Tapos kung hindi, yun, may maraming ways na yung in-house relocation, in-city relocation sana ang kailangan pa i-strategize ng gobyerno.
Yeah, and I think there are models and countries na ginawa na yan, diba? Mostly sa Scandinavian nations. And I guess, although it didn't completely solve the problem, of course, but they already have proof na it works in a way na somehow good percentage of people somehow are able to get back on their feet. But from what I understand, that's just the first step. And then, of course, you have to have additional support, which is very problematic sa atin. And do you see any hope of that happening during your lifetime? Kahit na percentage lang? Kasi saan mo pa ilalagay sa Metro Manila? Diba? Dinala sa Calauan. We all know in Calauan, Laguna, what happened nga. A lot of the kids and the wives or the husbands, basta part ng family, naiiwan. And then nagkakaroon ng bigger problem. Kasi nga, as you said, it poses greater risk for the kids. And then another is yung mga kwento na nagkakaroon pa ng pangalawang asawa kasi magkahiwalay. Diba? Parang ganon. So, do you see any hope of affordable housing happening?
Look, I don't say why not. It depende sa gusto, depende sa will, 'di ba? Kung may political will, hindi naman siya napakalaking ask. And actually yung economic benefits sa Philippines, kung maging productive yung mga communities na yan, isipin niyo yung like halimbawa ng area ng Tondo na may fire na sunog ng 100, 200, 300 houses every 3 months, 4 months, yung impact sa families na yon, yung ripple on effect sa buong community. Imagine kung mahanap ng stable housing para sa families na yan, bigyan sila ng support na kailangan, yung iba kailangan ng intensive support, yung iba hindi, kailangan lang ng safe place to live. Tapos, yung give back, yung return on investment, kung ma-stabilize yung mga families na yan, there'll always be difficult cases, there'll always be some cases that's not going to work for. Pero sa big majority ng mga, especially urban poor areas, kung bigyan talaga sana sila ng stable housing, makafocus pa sila sa ibang aspects ng buhay nila, tulungan pa natin sila, buong bansa ang ma-benefit, hindi lang yung families na yan. Kaya very short-sighted tayo kung isipin lang natin na ating sarili o parang kasi ayaw ba natin makita na mas stable, mas safe, mas less crime, less trauma, tragedy, parang yung impacts ng climate change, kailangan isipin na sa mga very unstable housing. So every time that happens, it has a ripple on effect. So if we can get ahead of it and anticipate and budget it, hindi rin pwede overnight, pero kung pwede, halimbawa may target ng bawat city ng Metro Manila na 1,000 ang families ang ma-relocate every year na condo buildings lang yon, tapos maka-develop talaga yung buong city dahil less squatter areas, mga ganun. Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, but what do you think is the pushback? Bakit tumatawa lang tayo when we say that? And we all know, I think everybody knows that that's one of the biggest steps na para maging may solution.
Yeah, I think sometimes yung political structure is very difficult kasi there's no minimal yung incentive na maging long-term tayo kasi naghahanap tayo ng short-term, naghahanap tayo ng re-election in 3 years, hindi 15 years, hindi 20 years. So yung mga long-term solutions, mahirap talaga ipakomit. Mahirap kumuha ang support ngayon, tapos mahirap pasundan sa mahabang panahon. Kasi kung yung next administration papasok at magbago ang priorities, mawala ang funding, mawala din. So it's really, that's a real challenge ng political system na kailangan sana natin yung visionary leaders na talagang kaya mag-set ng long-term path na, and then sunod na leaders ay makastick din sa path sana yun. Hindi,
wouldn't be afraid yung susunod na hindi ako yung nagsimula niyan. So, it wouldn't, hindi sa akin makikredit yan. So, I'd make a new one. Parang ganun. So, diba sa Bahay Tuluyan, one of your programs nga, aside from, I know, going to the streets to, may book kayo and then education, diba? Yung isa sa gusto ko talagang ginagawa nyo is you try to put the families back together. Mm-hmm. So, pwede kang magkwento or about that and sa experience, and if you've seen, you want to share any parang, anong tawag dito? Effects or outcomes na you are especially like proud of or wala lang, gusto mo lang i-share.
Yeah, maraming kwento actually over yung history ng Bahay Tuluyan, nearly 40 years na, 38 years na kami. Ang daming magandang stories na yung bata ay kailangan ng pangsamantalang mag-alaga sa Bahay Tuluyan, pero nahanap din yung family, nakabalik sa family, o sometimes hindi naman sa hindi nahanap ang family pero hindi sila safe o may absent parent. Tapos mga bumabalik, may nakabalik na, tapos ang pinaka good story sa amin is yung hindi na namin marinig. Kasi madalas kung may problema, may after case monitoring may after case monitoring din ng mga social workers namin. Pero sometimes na kahit yun, after ng case monitoring may problema, in a way good, mabalik ang bata kasi alam nila saan sila lalapit kung may kailangan. Pero madalas kung balikan ko yung mga ibang stories ng mga bata na yun, na kailangan lang ng may isang bata recently na kita lang talaga sa street, tapos pag nalaman namin yung kwento niya, maayos naman talaga ang family niya, pero parang may misunderstanding lang, tapos lumayas siya, ilan buwan din na parang kung saan siya nakatira, nagstay dito, nagstay doon, hanggang na-contact namin yung family, tapos siya mismo ay parang talagang happy na bumalik, tapos sila na very worried about sa kanya. Ayun, bumalik na siya, tapos stable na siya. Yung mga ganon na, maraming kwento na ganon, na paminsan kasi yung safety net nga ng family is wala. So yung mga parents na nag-struggle sa normal parenting things, mahirap palaki ng bata, o may financial problems, sometimes mas malalim na may abuse o violence na hindi nila alam na paano i-tackle. Kaya parang wawasak yung family. Pero yung madalas, kung hindi yung direct family, ang makakuha ulit ng bata, may recently at the moment ongoing lang yung reintegration ng dalawang bata na matagal kami nag-try sa kanilang biological father na sana makauwi sila sa kanya, pero kahit anong ginawa namin, hindi talaga siya aayos ang buhay. Tapos biglang na-discover namin may tita and tito na willing talaga magkup-kup sa kanilang pamangkin. So sobrang excited na yung mga bata na makauwi. Tapos yung family excited din matanggapin. So, parang gano'n na sometimes yun lang ang kailangan ng intermediary para maka-assist sa family na struggling, na paano sila makaraos sa kanilang problema.
Mm-mm. Isipin mo yun, sa kwento mong yun. Kasi pag magkikwentuhan natin yung mga ganito, iniisip mo agad abuse and stuff na hindi mo talaga pwedeng mabuo na ng madali. Of course, madami din ganun. Pero sa kwento mo, parang, mga simpleng problema, it's very normal problems that due to lack of knowledge and then lack of support na para alam na pwedeng naturuan ng guidance sa school, kung yung may mga parental seminars or whatever lang na mas equip yung family, hindi na kailangang umabot na yung bata sana nasa States, or kung naglayas man yan, 1-2 araw lang nakauwi. So even those things pala, may nahahandle pala kayo ganong cases na naglayas, and then they just needed some help. Parang simple help. Yeah.
And they're not always that simple, but there are cases that it's very simple intervention nga sana.
So like so I think that's something na sa akin parang aha moment yon, kasi never kong kinonsider that kids like that would be part ng statistics natin sa CISS, right? So ngayon, can you tell, kasi para let's wrap this up, can you tell our listeners how they could help Bahay Tuluyan, or what they can do, or as part of society, or maybe reach out to Bahay Tuluyan? What does Bahay Tuluyan do, and what can we do to help or support?
Yeah, so you can find lots of information about us on our website, bahaytuluyan.org. So we're a children's rights organization based in Manila. We operate also in Laguna and Quezon. We are open to volunteers, but we do have some requirements for volunteers, which you can read up about on our website. What's important for us is that volunteers that come into our organization don't cause harm to children. So we have minimum periods of volunteering, and we have a screening process. We also actively work with lots of different organizations for partnerships. So where we've got limited capacity, but there's immense need. And there are many ways that different organizations can help. So sometimes it's technical assistance, sometimes it's skill sharing, sometimes it's manpower or human power. So we've got different groups coming and helping us out on our farm, helping us out with cleanup days. Some organizations host some of our youth on work experience placements, or help us out with practice job interviewing for our young people. We've had people train our youth to make coffee in our cafe. So there's lots of different ways to help. But I'd also say, look where you are. There are NGOs doing amazing things all over the Philippines. So find who's local to you and see how you can support them. So we're very open to having more support.
So Kath, thank you once again for joining us today. And thank you to everyone for listening. That was Catherine Sherry from Bahay Tuluyan Foundation. To learn more about their work, please visit their website and their socials. And please do visit and show your support there, okay? We'll share all the links in the show notes. So once again, I'm Hannah Grace. Thank you for listening.